My dearest brothers and sisters, this is Tunia speaking. I love you so very much. From your perspective, us Pleiadians look like pretty Scandinavians. And many Earth people are under the impression that this is a good description of our character and our society too. We're just beautiful, spiritually advanced Scandinavians with spaceships. It's logical that you think this, because while we don't lie, Earth channelers can only bring forth so much information at a time. So we have to make choices in what we talk about, and usually we would rather say that we love you and that you're doing great, or give you information directly relevant to Earth, rather than talk about ourselves. But we are a bit different from Earth humans, as we will explore in this message. Physical differences. We indeed look like slender, pretty Scandinavians, but we're a bit taller than Earth humans are. Not hugely so, but the average Pleiadian woman is slightly taller than the average Earthman is, for example. And our men are a bit taller than our women, as is the case with Earth humans. In some of the images you have, our men are depicted as quite muscled. While obviously people are different, in general we're more slender and fit than muscular. Even our military men are fit and well trained but don't tend to have big muscles, because galactic combat is mostly determined by speed and psychic ability and technology use and who can get the jump on the other, rather than by raw physical strength. Trying to beat a hostile reptilian via punching or wrestling is a bad idea even for a Pleiadian with big muscles. The bigger reptilians can literally just tear humans limb from limb. It's safer to just disable them from a distance, via either technology or psychic ability use. That said, while our military men don't have big muscles, they are strong. They take what we roughly think of as supplements, but what you would probably think of as steroids without side effects. These don't give people large muscles but do make them quite strong. Personally, I don't take those because I have no need for a large amount of physical strength, but it's available. I get that from an Earth perspective you might think, but why wouldn't you take those yourself? But from my perspective, why would I take supplements that I don't need? We often wear those tight suits we're often depicted with on Earth. They tend to be pretty plain. We're looking more at energy than at clothing. We do like to express ourselves, but we do that more via our energy and activities. Our typical clothing isn't as loose as Earth clothes are, and we do not have shame around our bodies. This means that unlike in your images, sometimes our nipples or the outline of a penis is visible beneath our clothing. We don't go out of our way to either show or hide this, it's just our bodies. Everyone has a body, after all. We simply wear clothing, and sometimes those things are visible, and sometimes they aren't, and it's no big deal. We do understand that you see things differently, so we might ensure that nipples and penis outlines aren't visible when we make physical contact with you. When you first get in contact with Pleiadians, they might be diplomatic and careful not to offend Earth's sensibilities too much. When we start wearing our normal clothing around you, and you see occasional nipples or penis outlines, that might mean that we've decided that you're cool and we don't need to act diplomatically around you and we can just be ourselves. Energy. We use energy much more often and more consciously than Earth humans do. Often we identify others via their energy, for example. If we send a telepathic message to someone who knows us, often we don't say our names, because the other person will just identify us by our energy. They'll just sense who the other person is. On Earth, energy plays a role in determining whether one person likes another. This plays an even greater role with us. Sometimes Earth humans ask, how can Pleiadians possibly be open to dating us Earth humans? Well, most Pleiadians aren't likely to start dating Earth humans. That said, energy can be a part of that answer. Your mastery of the light and dark, and your willingness to stand in the light in a dark environment, are attractive to some Pleiadians. We are more open and sensitive, which is great in our society, but it does mean that, for example, sometimes us Pleiadian women sometimes cry when we feel into the energies of Earth, because the suffering and pain and loneliness does hit us hard. On the other hand, it also means that when the channeler is telepathically talking to his Pleiadian twin flame and he hears music, sometimes she just spontaneously starts dancing, or at least starts moving to the music, and he gets a mental image of that. That's another part of being more open and more sensitive. Some of us are pure and quite energetically powerful. For example, When the channeler's twin flame doesn't hold in her energy and is just fully energetically present with him, then he has a slight feeling like he's basking in the presence of a goddess. So she usually does hold in her energy when she's talking to him or giving him an energetic hug. This channeler hasn't physically met Pleiadians yet. Giving an energetically powerful Pleiadian a handshake or hug, if they don't hold in their energy, could feel wonderful or intense, or lead to a slight energetic activation. In galactic society, strangers don't typically greet each other via some form of touch, because touch means having an energy exchange. Obviously, we wouldn't do the following, but if an energetically powerful Pleiadian physically stood in front of an Earth person and didn't hold in their energy and said jump off a bridge, then the Earth human would feel a substantial urge to do so. Most likely they would ultimately not do so, because it's obviously a stupid idea. However, if that Pleiadian said something even vaguely reasonable, then that Earth human might very well do it even if he wouldn't do so otherwise. This is what happens if an energetically powerful Pleiadian from their perspective just stands in front of an Earth person and talks normally, without holding in their energy. So I'm not talking about psychic mind control here, which yes, some of us can also do, even though we wouldn't without consent. In the rare cases that we use mind control with consent, it's usually for moving someone's body in a specific way to achieve a certain task, or for teaching someone how they can move their body in order to do certain things. If you're curious, being psychically mind-controlled doesn't feel like you're somehow compelled to do a certain thing. Instead, it feels like your body moves before your conscious mind is even aware of what's happening. It doesn't feel like you're being forced to make certain decisions, instead it feels like there's no decision input from you at all. Religion. Many Pleiadians want to ultimately serve Source. Their way of doing that is typically by doing useful things for our society and being kind to others, because Pleiadians trust that their society and their leadership is aligned with Source. Our higher-up decision makers are the ones actively making sure that their society's direction is aligned with Source. Pleiadians may give thanks to Source, but typically don't directly ask Source or angels for help. Usually we instead solve problems via psychic abilities, asking other galactic races for help or technology. That said, Earth is teaching us to request help from angels a bit more often than we previously did, because the situation on Earth is so complicated that we can certainly use the help. We don't have religious laws, and we barely have any normal laws. Perhaps laws are necessary in lower consciousness societies, but to us having many laws just feels like a soft form of enslavement. If people are cared for and loved, they will just act harmoniously without being forced to do so by laws. Mind reading. We also don't feel like we need to hide any part of ourselves, and we're fine with constantly being mind read by other Pleiadians. Privacy just sounds lonely to us. Being fully mind read by someone who is fully present and loving and non-judgmental is a wonderful thing. At least, that's what it feels like to us. We don't feel like we have to hide or be ashamed of any part of us. We can put up a don't mind read me wall and that is respected, but we rarely do so. We do sometimes put up a don't mind read me wall for the purposes of having slightly kinky sex, in the same way that you might use a blindfold in the bedroom. Suddenly your partner doesn't know what's coming anymore. Another mind reading related version of slightly kinky sex we have is, I'm going to sexually stimulate you, and I'll read your mind to keep you on the edge for as long as I want, and thereby I'll determine when you orgasm. If we engage in that type of sexual edging play, we can actually be a little ruthless and intense and give the other quite a hard time. After all, we have nice things all the time, so having a quite challenging experience can be a treat for us. In your society where people have lots of challenges and rarely have nice things, people want more nice things. A nice thing is a treat. In our society where we have lots of nice things and rarely have challenges, people want more challenges. A challenge is a treat. And besides, we see challenging experiences as just experiences. Plus, if you've already done the nice things for a few hundred years, you want some variety. So if you end up in bed with a Pleiadian someday who proposes sexual edging play and you agree, well, you might get edged harder than you expected. Our brand of kindness can be giving someone a new, and not necessarily easy experience. It will ultimately be mind-blowing though. And if you think I'm into that, bring it on. Yeah, well, what you're picturing is probably less intense than what I'm picturing, and what others have consensually done to me, and what I have consensually done to others. Those were dark days, before I found my husband. Free will and boundaries are obviously respected, and we're mind readers, so we're not going to do something that actually harms the other person. And obviously most of our sex is just gentle and nice. If one Pleiadian is attracted to another, and they mind read that the other Pleiadian is single and likes them too, then the Pleiadian might just slowly step in to kiss them. They don't ask for consent, but do move slowly enough that the other person has the opportunity to give a no. Kissing on Earth often means I like you, but in the Pleiades it can mean I think I might like you. Let's have an energy exchange via a kiss in order to find out if we do like each other. Pleiadians are usually more internally aligned and less confused than Earth humans are. I realize that if an Earth human just slowly stepped in and kissed someone, then it might lead to a messy situation where the other person might be physically attracted back but also have anxiety and unresolved bad previous experiences, and be confused and internally split, and it wouldn't be good. So we do understand that when interacting with Earth humans, if we want to kiss them, we should ask for consent first. If you're wondering if you can just slowly step in and kiss us, we won't get offended if you do. And obviously just asking us is fine too. But most likely if you stand in front of us and that thought or urge crosses your mind, the Pleiadian will just mind read that and state what they are and aren't interested in with you, and what their boundaries and intentions are. In fact, the channeler's twin flame sometimes even responds to his subconscious thoughts before he is consciously aware of them. So she might say seemingly out of nowhere, "You'll do great tomorrow." He'll reply, "Huh, what do you mean?" And she'll say, "You're subconsciously anxious about tomorrow. But don't worry, you'll do great." And hey, if it's observed, it can be let go off, and then it doesn't keep spooking around in your subconscious. Interacting with someone is just so much easier if you can mind read each other, or at least if one person can mind read the other. Frankly, I don't know how Earth humans interact with people without mind reading them. It seems like a headache to me. We feel loved. Us Pleiadians feel loved, and feel soft-fed, and feel cared for. A consequence of this is that we feel no urgency to make a name for ourselves, to be exceptional, to do things to stand out, to get attention from others, etc. Indeed, most Pleiadians are perfectly happy to lead normal lives and not try to get a large amount of things or fame. Most Pleiadians are perfectly content with not ending up in our version of the history books. Because of this, Pleiadians are generally happy to give and provide and help and contribute. After all, we're taken care of already, and our cups are already overflowing. When we look at Earth humans, we often see that they have been dramatically underloved, and we generally see that as one of your biggest issues. And I think you're amazing and fully worthy of love. I wouldn't have done as well as you have if I had been born on Earth. You're amazing, and you're doing very well. Pleiadian women see giving large amounts of love to people as one of their contributions, and they understand that saying "don't do this, do that instead" isn't very effective if people don't feel loved first. Besides, people are just generally competent if only they're loved and their needs are met. Plus, what you might see as a mistake, we may just see a valid choice that leads to experiences. All roads lead back to source, after all. If us Pleiadians can't easily find a partner, we can ask an AI to play matchmaker and arrange a date with an interested and compatible person. This is quite effective, and in the future this may become common on Earth as well. A downside is that us Pleiadians actually tend to be slightly less creative problem solvers than Earth humans are. After all, we're cared for already, and we don't need to do creative problem solving in order to get our needs met. And our society is so well structured, and we have AI that can help, so a lot of challenges that arise in your daily life just don't arise in our lives. Therefore, we simply don't practice creative problem solving as much as you do. This channeler's Pleiadian twin flame is often impressed when he uses items in improvised ways to accomplish certain tasks or do certain home repairs. In your eyes this wouldn't be very noteworthy, but from our perspective this is remarkably creative. Us Pleiadians would simply get the conventional, perfect object or tool and then do things by the book. Or we'd ask AI to do the task for us. We don't lay on the beach all day. We're not forced to work. However, from our perspective, our society isn't perfect but is really nice. So we feel a certain pull to work to maintain it, both morally and also because we want our children to have an amazing society. We're also aware that some people, such as Earth humans, are suffering very much and need help. And of course, you're us and we're you, so we do feel a responsibility to help. And certain races like reptilians pose a threat to an extent. If us Pleiadians literally just lay on the beach all day, well, we would get invaded. So the average Pleiadian certainly has plenty of downtime, but we do put in a decent amount of working hours as well. Pleiadian men. Pleiadian men typically choose a field, and because they live such long lives compared to yours, they tend to become extremely good at that field. I don't mean to say that men constantly do the same menial labor, AI takes care of all that kind of work. I mean to say that a Pleiadian man might be an extremely good engineer or soldier or researcher or spiritual teacher or diplomat or cook or doctor, etc. Pleiadian men are generally competent, non-needy, secure, helpful, generous, responsible, and level-headed. They're happy to mentor or teach or lead people where it's welcome and appropriate. They're not afraid to express emotions, but they're just pretty emotionally stable overall. The only time the channeler has experienced a Pleiadian man being quite emotional was when the topic of the severe mistreatment of Earth human children was brought up. While bad hierarchies are bad, in some situations things just work better if there's a hierarchy. In the military you need soldiers and you need a commander. In the emergency medical room you need to have one person who ultimately makes the decisions. Mind reading makes it easy to determine who is most competent and hence who should be put on top of the hierarchy. Pleiadian men, like Pleiadian women, like to move their bodies. A lot of them like to dance, or run, or swim, or have sex, or do some basic military training. Some Pleiadian men like to cook, but what's more common is that neither a Pleiadian husband nor wife can cook particularly well, and they just go to shared eating halls where Pleiadian expert cooks serve delicious meals. It's a fun way to talk to people outside of your direct family. And sometimes there are shows or fun activities, either during or shortly after the meal. If a Pleiadian cook isn't available, for example if someone is on some kind of trip, then machines can make perfectly adequate meals. Pleiadian men have high standards, they can be no nonsense, they prioritize their family and they are unafraid of working hard. The channeler's twin flame is trying to write Earth-related articles and get them submitted to the Galactic Network, a shared repository of knowledge that galactics can download information from. And because she isn't a professional researcher, she's finding it hard to get her articles past a certain male peer reviewer. That peer reviewer is kind and gives good feedback and is willing to help, but he also has very high standards and won't accept anything that doesn't meet those standards. As another anecdote, one time the channeler volunteered to do light work for a male Pleiadian who was working on a specific project. The channeler understood that he could state boundaries and quit any time, and the Pleiadian mind read that the channeler knew that. So the Pleiadian asked the channeler to do an amount and intensity of light work that was very tiring for the channeler. And the Pleiadian knew that, but kept unapologetically making light work requests, since from a utilitarian perspective the channeler's fatigue was a low cost to help out the collective. Fairness isn't really a concept in Pleiadian society. We think more in terms of people should be able to lead the lives they want, and their free will shouldn't be violated. Sure, that is sort of like fairness, but if someone's soul chooses a hard path, then the result may not seem fair to that person's conscious mind, but we think that's fine, it's just a soul's free will choice. Pleiadians, like most or all positive spiritually advanced beings, have prevent suffering slightly lower on their list of priorities than Earth humans do. After all, ultimately you're a reincarnating soul, and souls can generally choose a comfy life nearly free of suffering in, for example, the Pleiades, or something like an Earth life, which involves more suffering but also more soul growth. Of course, we do still want to work to reduce suffering, it's just lower on our list of priorities. And we also weigh up things like soul growth and what people's souls want. This is illustrated by the fact that we haven't yet launched a massive open intervention to immediately liberate Earth, for example. Pleiadian men tend to be either humorous or playful, or at least they see things in a way that to them is funny. Hakann and Ashtar are actually less humorous and playful than the average Pleiadian man is, perhaps due to their large amount of responsibilities, or perhaps that's just what they're like. One Pleiadian spiritual teacher who this channeler works with has introduced himself as Pranir. And anytime the channeler thinks Pranir to contact him, Pranir replies with "Yes, I'm here," and is vaguely amused to give a rhyming response. It's not the most humorous thing in the universe, but Pranir enjoys doing that. The channeler experiences energetic hugs from Hakann as incredibly comforting and calming and stress-reducing. Pleiadian women. Pleiadian women typically do some amount of work, though a bit less than the men do. This isn't mandated, this is just what people choose to do. For example, the channeler's twin flame spends about 2.5 to 3 hours per Earth day teaching children, plus she spends about another 30 to 60 minutes preparing lessons. Us Pleiadian women are also a bit more likely to occasionally switch to some new job, and not become a dedicated expert in one field as our men tend to do. We spend a bit more time than the men on visiting friends and family, and we spend a bit more time relaxing and having fun. And yes, I do think that us Pleiadian women have got ourselves an amazing deal. We don't work as much as the men, we're loved and we have everything we need. The men genuinely are happy too. Just as men feel they have the role to provide and protect where necessary, us Pleiadian women feel that we have the role to love and support people, certainly including men. Men are very competent, but they do need love, and we can help provide that. Of course, we are loved too. Another role that the men feel they have is to keep their wives sexually satisfied. It's usually our men making an effort to keep their wives satisfied, rather than the other way around. After all, Pleiadian couples tend to be very attracted to each other, and female bodies are overall just better able to have a lot of sex. Every man thinks he wants a high libido partner, until he actually has one. Yes, we also tend to love babies and children. Sometimes when the channeler happens to see a small child, he'll hear a telepathic "Look how adorable she is. Ah. I want children too if his twin flame happens to be looking through his eyes at that moment. Pleiadian women tend to be mostly feminine but also pretty well balanced in their feminine and masculine energy. So we're happy to follow our partner and be feminine if he takes the lead. But if he's struggling, we can take the metaphorical wheel of the ship for a while if needed. Plus it's fun to occasionally be the ones to organize something. And, if it were up to men, we'd only have nice and pleasurable and orderly things. Can you imagine the horror? So occasionally a girl's gotta spice things up, make things interesting. No worries, usually my husband can get us out of the mess that I got us into. That's when my husband compliments me by calling me a chaos goblin. At least, I'm choosing to hear that as a compliment. Did you know you can do that, just choosing to hear things as compliments? Free life hack right there. Now, some longtime readers might think that I'm too submissive to my husband. Well, to an extent, I'm submissive to my husband. I don't see that as a bad thing. Still, first of all, I'm not really the earth ideal of the chaste virgin bride. I certainly didn't try to preserve my virginity when I was younger and hadn't yet met my now husband. Plus, I think the idea that some earth men have that women should dress modestly is pretty silly. I'll wear, or not wear, what I want. Sunshine on bare skin is healthy, And sure, I won't get mad if you look. If you can't handle seeing the human body, that's not my problem. Do some yoga exercises to deal with excessive lust if it's bothering you. Second, I do generally prioritize my husband and my children over myself, which I think is fair, because he spends a substantially larger amount of time working than I do, which benefits society. It's not like my husband is prioritizing himself over everything else. He works, and he makes small sacrifices on his end for the benefit of myself and our children. It's not like he's leading a hedonistic lifestyle where he puts himself first. Still, I do make choices that I really want to make even if my husband has a slight preference for me not doing that. For example, my husband would prefer that I not be a chaos goblin occasionally, but ultimately he doesn't mind it too much if I keep it within certain boundaries. So sometimes I indulge, and let the chaos goblin energy flow through me. Besides, it's led to some great stories, and to some it's led to some memories, alright. As a mind reader, it's always interesting to have an experience with someone, and then compare your memory of it to the other person's memory of it. It shows that attitude and worldview and optimism really do a lot to change how we perceive and remember things. Although, of course, in this particular Chaos Goblin situation, it's easy for me to talk. Well, that's all that comes to mind right now about what we Pleiadians are like. You're doing amazing, and I can't wait to meet you. When I land, maybe I'll wear an especially tight suit that shows my nipples poking through, and I'll count how many Earth people have sexual thoughts about me. And maybe I can convince my husband or a male friend to wear tight clothing too, and see how many people have sexual thoughts about him. Look, I don't want to give dozens of Earth men an erection, but I gotta do it. For science, you know. I should pitch this: will a male or female Pleiadian in an especially tight suit make more people aroused idea as a research project. At the very least, I expect that I'll get a Chaos Goblin compliment out of my husband. Or when I give someone an erection, I could walk up to him and say, "Hello, I'm Tunia. I saw you looking at my breasts and then getting an erection. No need to deny it, it's fine. I also think I have nice breasts. Look, I'm happily married, but I have a couple of single friends, and they look somewhat similar to me. So tell me a bit about yourself and what you're looking for, and maybe I can arrange a date for you." Source knows that some of my friends are slacking when it comes to finding a husband, after all. And then I'll probably realize that the Earthman hasn't heard a word I said, because he is still looking at my breasts. Oh well. You win some, you lose some. Or maybe when a guy gets an erection from seeing me, I'll quickly walk behind a wall. Then my husband walks up to that guy and says, "Look at the outline of my penis under my clothing. Okay, now that you're no longer hypnotized by my wife, please sign up to Tunia's dating service." Wait, that'll get foiled by horny bisexuals, who will then be hypnotized by my husband's magnificent penis. Drat. Ah well, at least the phrase "hypnotized by my husband's magnificent penis" has now been put on the Earth's internet, where quite possibly your AIs will eventually read it. So a few years from now, try asking your AIs whether the penis of Tunia's husband is magnificent or not. It should know the correct answer then. Anyway. Not every Earth human will be able to find a Pleiadian partner, but some people will. And don't worry, our decision makers understand that I'm an acquired taste and that I shouldn't be unleashed upon Earth until a more responsible group of Pleiadians has made the very first contact. So somewhere in the future you should have at least a couple of amazing days of first contact before the Chaos Goblin gets unleashed. I mean, I also wouldn't let me be part of the first contact group. Don't worry, most Pleiadians are much more reasonable than I am. With all my love. Your star sister, Tunia.